Thank you for watching or listening to this free podcast of the Young Turks. We want to make sure that you get some portion of the show every day, but if you want the full show, which is actually 5 segments, come become a member and support independent media as well. tytnetwork.com/join. Meanwhile, enjoy the free podcast. It's Friday, what is this? Drop it! All my rowdy friends are here tonight, except not really.
Where are they?
Some of my rowdy friends are here. Epic's here. Michael Schur joins us. Anna Kasparian is here. She's going to be leading the proceedings throughout. It is indeed quite a powerful panel. You brought Epic Politics Manda back in good force earlier in the week on Old School, pulling out the representative for the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Amazing. I'm curious how you knew that. Do you study it before bed?
I am too, to be honest with you. I have a retention for that stuff that I don't know.
Yeah. Fascinating and very impressive.
It doesn't, well, I guess it has helped. I mean, here I'm sitting here.
Well, there you are. Yeah. You're Epic. Are you kidding me? Michael also works for I-24, by the way, and you should check him out on I-24. All right, so we got, of course, plenty of news today about Trump and his instability and who's leaving his administration and what's his new nickname for Bannon. It used to be Bam Bam, as we explained yesterday on the show. Now he's got a new one, and it is as simplistic as we thought it might be.
There's some alliteration, which
a little bit.
There's alliteration, true.
Yeah, it could have been worse. It could have been worse.
Actually, it's hard for this man to make me chuckle, but when I saw that, I was like, because it was about Bannon, who I also don't like.
That's right. That's right. Okay. And later in the program, Alex Jones goes on a rant. We try not to cover him, but this one is particularly insane, but also dangerous. I'm going to explain why it's dangerous when we get to that story. Okay, all right, let's do it, Anna.
All right. Even though Steve Bannon seemed to backpedal and try to make amends with Donald Trump recently after giving some devastating quotes to Michael Wolffe for his book, Donald Trump continues to punch back at Steve Bannon, and aggressively so. During a recent Twitter tirade, here's what Trump had to say about Bannon. The Mercer family recently dumped the leaker known as Sloppy Steve Bannon. Smart. Okay.
Usually he goes with sad, and now that Twitter's expanded, he usually fills it up.
Yeah.
But this one was just like a little quick, you know.
It was quick, and that Sloppy Steve nickname immediately began trending on Twitter. In fact, according to reports, within minutes of Trump's tweets, Sloppy Steve rose to the top of the list of trending terms in the US on Twitter.
Yeah, as we were just mentioning at the start of the show, Sloppy Steve is not his worst nickname. I thought it was going to be more simplistic, like Bad Bannon.
But that's even not. There's alliteration there. There's a little bit of cleverness to the nickname, which is like Lying Hillary or whatever.
Crooked Hillary.
Or Crooked Hillary. There's no alliteration there. But
there's nothing clever.
But it was very simplistic, and of course it worked with his base.
You're confusing Lion Ted with Crooked Hillary.
That's right. There's Lion Ted.
Ridiculous mistake.
There's alliteration. There's a little bit of cleverness.
Just a smidge, if you will.
By the way, Sloppy Steve comes just days after we learn that Trump throws his sheets on the floor and leaves his clothes on the floor and doesn't want the housekeepers to pick them up. And he's calling Bannon sloppy.
I don't know this story.
Yeah, well, you haven't read your excerpts of Fire and Fury. The president of the United States leaves his clothes on the floor and upbraided one of the housekeepers, according to Michael Wolffe, for picking his things up. He also made sure that he is the one who pulls up his own sheets when it's time to change the sheets. He doesn't want anybody else touching his sheets.
No, you know what that is? That isn't about being sloppy. I hadn't heard that either. He's paranoid. Like they're going to put something in his clothes, they're going to put something in his sheets. He is such a strange dude. The sloppy comes in when he's eating the burger in bed.
Yeah, right. Well, there's that too. Watching 3 TVs and having burgers.
Is that sloppy?
I wouldn't eat in bed, but okay.
I eat in bed all the time.
Anyway, these are all incredibly minor. Let's go back to the main event.
All right, so I want to really hone in on the main thesis of that tweet, which is Bannon losing funding. Now, we were all excited because it did seem as though Rebecca Mercer was about to pull her support from Breitbart, but that does not appear to be the case. She is pulling her support specifically from Steve Bannon. Breitbart might still get funded by the Mercers. So here is a statement from Rebecca Mercer in regard to Steve Bannon specifically. I support President Trump and the platform upon which he was elected. My family and I have not communicated with Steve Bannon in many months and have provided no financial support to his political agenda, nor do we support his recent actions and statements. And according to recent reporting, Mercer and her family have not withdrawn their financial support from Breitbart. Members of the board, though, including Mercer herself, have met recently to discuss whether or not to remove Bannon from Breitbart. So he would lose his job or his position at Breitbart. So
let's just go through that really quickly because it's really important. Because a conservative without a billionaire backer is basically homeless. Doesn't have anything. They never make any money, with the exception of Fox News. Credit where credit is due. So if he loses Breitbart, he's gone, totally irrelevant. He's got nothing left. So now the Mercers, are they actually pulling away from Steve Bannon? Well, yes and no. So Robert Mercer is the guy who actually made the money. He works on Wall Street and bankrolls Breitbart. Now, when we found out, BuzzFeed did a great article about how Milo had gone and talked to neo-Nazis and white supremacists to write like the main thesis for what the alt-right is and what Breitbart stands for. And then Robert Mercer was like, whoa, that's toxic. I'm selling Breitbart to my daughter. So now that's why Rebecca Mercer owns Breitbart. So that was a preposterous distancing of himself. I mean, he distanced himself by about 1 inch from Breitbart. So now Rebecca Mercer is saying like, oh, Steve Bannon, we don't have anything to do with his political agenda, which means we didn't give money to Roy Moore in Alabama. That's all that means, right? And we're not pulling any money from Breitbart. But if they actually do kick him out of Breitbart, that at least is real. If they keep him at Breitbart, then the Mercers still completely and utterly finance Steve Bannon and therefore apparently agree with his agenda.
Yeah, and you should also point out that the Breitbart people like Steve Bannon. They like him more than they like the Mercers. And Steve Bannon, if the Mercers go away, can replace the Mercers. But he can't replace having Breitbart as his mouthpiece. I mean, Miles Kwok is a Chinese billionaire. He's a billionaire that is saying, I'm going to put money into Steve Bannon's Breitbart. The money will come. It's if he doesn't, as you pointed out, have Breitbart, then he doesn't have his mouthpiece.
So there's a possibility that nothing good comes out of any of this.
Right, there's a possibility that nothing good comes out of any of this. And the Mercers, it's not like the Mercers are going to pull their money out of Breitbart and then do wonderful things with it that make you smile, right? I mean, it's just punitive to Steve Bannon, which is, in itself, somewhat delightful. But by the same token, Steve Bannon will find a way, if he has Breitbart, to make sure Breitbart survives.
And look, side note here, it's really annoying that if you're in the middle or you're in the left, you have to earn your keep. You have to actually run a real business. You have to make a profit. You have to be sustainable. On the right wing, they just put up a little tin cup and they're like, okay, here, who would like propaganda? Who would like propaganda? And somebody comes in and throws in money, and whether it's a Chinese billionaire or a US billionaire, and they go, yeah, keep doing that right-wing stuff about deregulating businesses and tax cuts for the rich. That's awesome.
Well, but also keep in mind that they don't merely exist because of the donors that want them to exist. Breitbart got a deal with satellite radio. They're on the Patriot channel, so there are platforms out there that give them a voice, give them the opportunity to spread that propaganda. Now, we're also on Sirius, and it is what it is, but the reality is maybe they wouldn't be as profitable. They wouldn't really make enough money to keep their business sustainable or afloat. But there apparently is a market for this type of propaganda because they keep getting opportunities, which I would argue is even more questionable.
Yeah, no, look, last thing on that. I don't begrudge Sirius for giving them a show. I know a lot of people do. But that's the right wing in this country. They represent a certain percentage of people, and I think that that's Sirius gets to put them on. I mean, even like to Michael's point. Okay, so let's say you don't give Breitbart a show on Sirius Patriot. I have to be honest. I hate the name of that.
Every time I hear it, it
grates on my nerves.
That's the worst thing that Sirius did. Give them a lot of shows, but don't call one side Patriot, not the other side.
It's really, that's actually super annoying. But if you took Breitbart's show away, you'd put another right-wing show, and it'd be equally loathsome. But They get to be loathsome. It's a free country.
Breitbart would be syndicated elsewhere, right? They wouldn't be on Sirius. They'd be on 7,000 channels on Clear Channel or something like that. Yeah, which I don't even know.
All right. Well, moving on to some other news today. Donald Trump continues to argue against the validity of Michael Wolff's recent book, Fire and Fury, which was just released, early released actually. And in a recent tweet, he said that he authorized zero access to the White House, actually turned him down many times for author of phony book. I never spoke to him for book full of lies, misrepresentations, and sources that don't exist. Look at this guy's past and watch what happens to him and Sloppy Steve. All right, so Sloppy Steve was used again in this tweet. But, it's unsurprising that he is calling into question the validity of Michael Wolff's book, even though Steve Bannon has not denied any of the statements that were leaked before the release of the book. And I do want to mention that there have been other members of the media that have criticized Michael Wolff's reporting in the past. Not that he reports false things, but that he might embellish things or use hyperbole to tell the stories, or maybe doesn't remember certain components of the stories exactly the way that they happened. But so far, based on what we know and what has been reported, no one has denied anything other than Donald Trump, which I think is a pretty telling sign.
When you go to the White House, when you're a reporter, you go to the White House, and you don't have what's called a hard pass, where you're there every day and you're part of the White House, press corps every day, part of the pool. You get a temporary pass. So I will walk in, I'll show my passport, and they will give me my temporary pass that has already been, I've been pre-cleared, they've already gone through those motions. That temporary pass is gray. It gets me to the press room and not much more than that, to some of the offices within the press side. When you go and you get a blue pass, that means you have West Wing access. It's a West Wing pass. Zeke Miller of Time Magazine and a few others have said that whenever they saw Michael Wolff at the White House, he had a blue pass. And you notice that when you're there every day, because it's like, that guy's got a blue pass. That's pretty cool. He can go into the West Wing. There is no disputing that Michael Wolff was at the White House, and Trump says he didn't give him access. It's his White House that issued that blue pass. And so the denying of what went on there is remarkable.
So I want to go to Michael Wolff himself, because he had an interview with the Today Show. He gave them an exclusive interview, and he responds to these accusations that he didn't even have access to the West Wing. Let's take a look.
Did you talk to the president? Did you interview him for this book?
I absolutely spoke to the president. Whether he realized it was an interview or not, I don't know, but it certainly was not off the record.
And you spoke to him at the White House after he was sworn in?
I spoke to him after the inauguration, yes. And I had spoken to, I've spent about 3 hours with the president over the course of the campaign in the White House. So my window into Donald Trump is pretty significant. But even more to the point, I spent, and this was really sort of the point of the book, I spoke to people who spoke to the president on a daily, sometimes minute-by-minute basis. So this book was really, in a sense, there was one question on my mind when I began this book. What is it like to work with Donald Trump? How can you work with Donald Trump? And what is the, how do you feel having worked with Donald Trump?
Yeah. So let's talk about what you mentioned there, Anna, in the beginning, which is some people saying sometimes Michael Wolff embellishes stuff. He says he's never had, of the millions of words that he's written in books and in articles, had one fact that had to be corrected. And so I haven't checked every word he's ever written, but okay, that's a bold statement and likely proven false if it was false. So, and no one has said that it's false. So, okay, likely to be true. And And we report that in an effort to be fair, right? But it's not, I don't want anybody walking away thinking 50-50. It ain't 50-50. Michael Wolff's a real reporter that's been around for decades, and Donald Trump is a notorious pathological liar who has every interest in the world to lie about this situation. Now, having said that, the Trump team says they once talked on the phone for 7 minutes, and Michael Wolff says in total in the campaign and in the White House, I've talked to him for about 3 hours. My guess is that particular thing, the quotes he can't make up. He'll be in massive trouble if he made up the quotes, and he's got audio tape of most of it or contemporaneous notes, etc. But my guess is on the number of times he actually spoke to Trump, it's probably somewhere in the middle. And I'm not doing both sides do it or trying to call it even. It's just that 3 hours on the campaign in the White House, kind of. What does 3 hours mean, right?
Cumulative is what he's saying.
Yeah.
He's saying cumulatively. The White House can say he only spoke to him for 7 minutes because they keep a log of every minute of phone call he has. So it may not have been on the phone that they spoke every time, but there's a White House log that says 6 minutes and 48 seconds, Michael Wolff spoke with the president, right?
Right.
Michael Wolff could say, well, I saw him at Mar-a-Lago. I saw him on the campaign trail. I was in the White House. We passed by. I talked to him. Whatever.
That's exactly right. But I just want to explain. It's the least relevant part.
It is.
The question is, are the quotes right?
Right.
Are the facts right?
And I want to jump in on that point because I think that is the most relevant part of this. I don't care how long they spoke. I want to know whether or not these quotes are valid. And I believe they are valid because remember, Trump and his lawyers sent Michael Wolff and the publisher of his book the cease and desist letter threatening a lawsuit. And guess what they did? They released the book early. Okay, and I think the reason why they did that is because they're confident in the validity of the contents of that book. He would face significant, legal action if there was real defamation in there, if things were fabricated and made up. And in this next video, he talks about the evidence that he has, which I think is also valuable. Take a look.
Do you have recordings of some of these interviews and some of these conversations?
Well, I work like every journalist works. So I have recordings, I have notes. I am certainly absolutely in every way comfortable with everything I've reported in this book.
Would you release any of those recordings since your credibility is being questioned?
My credibility is being questioned by a man who has less credibility than perhaps anyone who has ever walked on earth at this point.
So I want to make, that was funny at the end, but I want to make I just forgot my point. Go ahead. Okay,
so look, in regards to that quote, it's funny, but he's absolutely right. In the sense that, I don't know that he's absolutely right about Trump being the very last person on earth you should trust, but he's in the ballpark. No, in terms of whose interest are we looking at here? Donald Trump has all the interest in the world to say that he doesn't have credibility. I mean, you should discount that completely. You should go, and by the way, when Michael Wolff says, I have all the credibility in the world, you should also discount that. You should go to neutral sources. Hey, what is the totality of Michael Wolff's career? What do other journalists say about him? Have people denied what he said in the book? Those are the things that you look at. Just saying, hey, he's questioned your credibility. Yeah, of course he questioned it. The guy buried him in the book, right? Yeah. He looks terrible. So, and when you look at those neutral sources and outside sources, first of all, it's amazing that no one has denied a single quote in the book outside of Trump.
Right.
That's amazing. And they work for Trump or worked for Trump. So that is overwhelming evidence. Point number two is, so they questioned one of the scenes and they most questioned that the Trump team did because it involved Russia. It was at a dinner at Michael Wolff's house, and the late Roger Ailes, who used to run Fox News, and Steve Bannon were there. And Ailes says to Bannon, I don't know why he listens to Putin so much. I don't know who's jerking whose chain here. So that's really interesting for those guys to think that even before Trump took office, that was on January 3rd. And they're like, oh, that's not true. There's no way that's true because it's about Russia. Janice Min, who helps to run Hollywood Reporters, like, I was at the dinner. It was word for word. That's absolutely accurate.
So I wanted to jump in on another criticism that Wolff has faced, and I think that it's a valid criticism based on what you think about journalistic ethics, because Michael Wolff got the access that he got by being very kind and sucking up to Trump and members of his administration. And he would make these public displays of supporting Trump. So I'll give you one example. He was on Brian Stelter's show on CNN, Reliable Sources, and during a live interview that he had on that show, he kind of scolded Brian Stelter for being too critical of Trump. So he knows that Trump watches cable TV. He knows that Trump was going to view that and see that Michael Wolffe is kind of defending him there. I mean, he played a certain role in order to get the access that he wanted. Now, if that's unethical or not, I mean, it's really up to you. But it gave him what he needed in order to get some of this content for his book.
Yeah, I think you're being too critical to Michael Wolffe.
But in all seriousness, though, 1 second on that. And you know that Michael Wolffe didn't mean those compliments because he now says Donald Trump is the least credible person on earth.
Yeah.
So when he was defending him earlier, that was obviously BS. Just keeping it real.
But also one thing to know about Michael Wolffe is that his career, a lot of his writing, it has been about social, wealthy New York. And Donald Trump, before he was your president, was part of social, wealthy New York to some degree. He was ostracized by a lot of people there, but he was the kind of shining, shiny ball that would be followed by Michael Wolffe and his reporting as a reporter. So it goes to reason, it stands to reason that he's the kind of person who would know how to break into the mindset and of Donald Trump. And that's just really good journalism. The people who are criticizing it, I'm guessing, are jealous of it. One of the other things you should do is you should look back to criticism that Bob Woodward got when he wrote a book about the White House called, I think it was called Shadow or Shadows. And he quoted and he presumed and he talked about, well, then George H.W. Bush walked out onto the Truman balcony and thought so-and-so. Well, he never talked to Bush about that. But enough people in Bush's sphere said, this is what the president did. He went outside. He thought, I need to go down to, Khrushchev and say this, or, Gorbachev and say this, or whatever. Not Khrushchev, but Gorbachev. But
that's a nice combination, by the way, of Khrushchev
and I'm making this up because that's just one of the possibilities of what was said. But that's how reporting is done, too. You speak to the people around him, and to Cenk and Anna's point, nobody has refuted it, right? Yeah. Except the president. When any kind of book like this, these books that there's always one person who finds it scurrilous, the person about whom it is written. And, whether it's a movie star, a rock star, or the Mr. Trump.
And one more thing about that. There's no way that the Trump team right now isn't calling every single person in the book going, go out on TV and refute it. Go out on TV and refute it. And everybody's like, nope.
Yeah.
So that's, and Bannon has now become cucked, right? And so he went out there because he's on the precipice of losing his entire career and his funding and all of that. And he went on a Sirius show and said, oh, Trump is a great man. I talk about the Trump miracle all the time. But he didn't refute any of the quotes.
That's right, yeah.
And in fact, there's one guy now, Sam Nunberg, who we're going to talk about later in the show, who's going around saying, yeah, I probably called him an idiot. In other words, yes, you did.
Yeah.
And and even Tillerson, before the book, when he was accused of calling him a moron, never denied that he called him a moron. Said, I'm not going to address that.
Yes.
Which means I called him a moron.
Exactly. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, more relevant portions of Michael Wolffe's interview with the Today Show.
You're right in the middle of this podcast. We got another great segment coming up for you. If you'd like the full show, which is actually 5 segments, go to tytnetwork.com/join. You become a member, you support the show, you support independent media, and you get the whole 2-hour show ad-free every day. Let's go do it now. Once again,
we need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be. Featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity, the UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Drop it. Cenk, Atticus Baron, Aida Rodriguez. Great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. First story is going to be super fun.
It is. I just want to make a quick comment about our Friday. Our Friday shows usually have the song that we just played as we were coming in, and it was done by one of our viewers. It's awesome. It's been around for a while. But there's a portion of it that goes, Anna and JR kicking it all night. And I'm like, we never kick it all night. Like, we've never once have me and JR kicked it all night.
Well, at the conventions back in the day.
Not even
all
that.
All of us.
Well, that's true. There was that one night that we were drinking and making jokes.
Making jokes.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris writes in on Twitter, Trump won't read the book himself. Someone will read it to him while he eats KFC in bed wearing a Christmas onesie. Thought of Trump in a onesie. Okay, well, thanks for that, Chris. Michael Napin writes in, if you choose to be a politician, there are no gotcha questions. Yes. Thank you, right?
That's such a great point. What was the so-called gotcha question that was mentioned?
Sam Nunberg in that last segment said like, oh, I had to prepare him for the gotcha questions, like when they asked Rudy Giuliani the difference between Sunni and Shia Muslims.
Yeah, look, that is not a gotcha question. Remember, Rudy Giuliani would constantly exploit 9/11 for political reasons and for his political agenda. If you're going to use that to push for certain foreign policy, then you need to let everyone know that you understand the difference between Sunni and Shia.
No.
Like, I just don't get it.
Yeah, no. Look, if you're a plumber and you don't know the difference between Sunni and Shia Muslims, bless your heart. You don't have to, right?
That's not your job.
That's not your job. And never under the sink do you run into a Shia, as far as I know. And if you do, no. Okay.
That's hilarious, though.
Okay, watch out. No, I always laugh. Whenever I think of that, I think of this. I'm so pissed. I always forget her name. I should look it up again. But this great Persian comedian writer, who she wrote about Christmas. If in Iran there's a guy with a beard coming down your chimney, it ain't Santa. And watch out, right? Anyway, okay, she's allowed to. She's Persian. She's allowed to write that joke.
Oh, yeah, right. Make sure you fix that.
Yes. But anyway, if you're running for president and it affects geopolitical considerations, and not just obscure ones, massive ones. You know, what's happening in Yemen? Why is Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen? Because the Shia overthrew the government in Yemen, and they're the Houthis. And if you don't know who the Houthis are, of course you don't. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, although you're our audience, so most of you do, right? But if you're running for president, that's monumentally important. That's not a gotcha question. Yeah, there's almost... A gotcha question is like this. On what day did they sign the French-Indian War peace treaty? Well, it doesn't matter what fucking day they signed it, right? That's a gotcha question.
It's like a very specific detail that's irrelevant. Like, it doesn't have any real application in policy.
The whole point of that phrase, gotcha question, is it's irrelevant.
Absolutely.
Right? Whereas the difference between Sunni and Shia Muslims, or the French and Indian War, or those are real things. They're not gotcha questions.
And that's why people like The Rock are saying, I'm running for president. Because the standard and the expectation is so low now.
Yeah.
That's why you have people think it's laughable, but the guy who was the apprentice guy is the president. So that is what happens when you lower the bar.
Like, I want the president of the United States to make me feel stupid. Like, make me feel like I'm not knowledgeable enough. I want him to be smarter than me, right? And I don't get that feeling with Trump at all.
To say the least.
Yeah.
But again, to be fair to The Rock and all those other guys, they're thinking, like, can I clear the Trump bar?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you can't clear the Trump bar, you literally can't go outside. Like, you know, so of course anybody can clear the Trump bar.
You literally can't go outside.
No, you can't. Like, you'll run into traffic and stuff. Like, if you were any dumber than Trump, you wouldn't know to not walk into the middle of the street.
I could walk in the middle of the street and nothing will happen to me because I'm made of steel. Okay,
because I'm bigly and the street's smally.
I just read, somebody was just talking about it. I just did this interview and they were saying that he does not allow anyone to touch his food.
Yeah.
But he eats at McDonald's.
We were just talking about that. Yeah.
So I didn't hear you guys, but it was on the radio with a Latino station, and it's one of the political correspondents for the Spanish stations that goes there. She was like, "I don't understand what is happening right now." I'm like,
"Oh, I got a great idea." Okay, but somebody's got to get it to him because you have to put it on his desk or get it to Fox and Friends to talk about it. And you could do it because if you turn it into like a racial insult, right? If somebody's got to tell Trump, you know, minorities probably make your food at McDonald's.
Yes.
Because then he'll be like, oh, okay, like that's it, I'm out. What am I going to eat now? Okay.
All right, let's move on to a disturbing story. Recently, Alex Jones was speaking about Michael Wolffe, the author of the controversial book Fire and Fury. And during his rant about Michael Wolffe, he randomly mentioned Brian Stelter, who is the host of Reliable Sources on CNN. He brought him up because he feels that Stelter looks a little like Michael Wolffe. And then he proceeded to go on this, in my opinion, incredibly disturbing rant about Brian Stelter. I don't want to give too much away. I'm going to let you judge for yourselves. Let's take a look at the first video.
But just look at Stelter again. Put him on screen. I think this all the broadcast should be is just a photo of Stelter smiling. Oh my gosh. Oh, hell on earth.
Okay.
But what was wrong with that picture? Right. I don't know what was wrong with that picture.
He's jealous of him because he's cuter than him. That's what it was.
He's got a nice smile. It's a good picture. I don't know.
Stelter was a good sport and said, "Thanks for using a flattering picture."
Yeah.
And yeah, there it is, right? So now, look, it's going to take a dark turn in a second, but while it's still fun, Alex Jones, the guy who does the shirtless videos, is making fun of somebody else's appearance. Okay. And all right, but so far, like, okay, you're freaked out by Stelter's appearance, but there is something there. And why does he say that he looks like Michael Wolffe? But we're going to connect those dots in a second. Let's keep going.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your active AD more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
He wants to run your life. He wants to control every aspect of your life because he knows he is a cowardly, degenerate sack of anti-human trash. I pledge before my Heavenly Father that I will resist them every way I can. These people are the literal demon spawn of the pit of hell. Look at him. And you know what? He is better than you if you keep letting him run your life. He runs your kids. He runs the schools. He runs the banks. This guy, this spirit, this smiling, leering devil that thinks you can't see what he is your enemy. Period. All the narcissistic, devil-worshipping filth. I see you, enemy. I see you, enemy. 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 You are my enemy. And I swear total resistance to you with everything I've got.
Okay, so he's a lunatic. Anyone who now disputes that he's a lunatic, let's just move on, right? So, look, there's getting animated on air, and we at the Young Turks have gotten animated on air. There's no question about that. Then there's that, right? Whatever that was. But more important than him sounding like a complete maniac is what he's becoming a maniac about, right? So if you're mad that they just like if they cut Social Security or Medicare and you were relying on Social Security to live, right? And you're mad about that, or somebody's mad about that for you. Great, right? They cut healthcare and now your kid's got cancer and you can't pay for it. Somebody should be mad about that. But you're mad about Brian Stelter.
No, this is insane. Brian Stelter he's not a politician, okay? He has no influence on policy. I have my own criticisms about Brian Stelter and his show, and I was on his show where I openly criticized CNN and talked about some of the issues, but the biggest criticism is that he is incredibly mediocre at his job. And what I mean by that is he plays, he doesn't really say anything. He'll have both sides on, he'll let both sides speak their piece, and then that's it. Like, he doesn't challenge anyone, and that drives me crazy about Brian Stelter. But to say that he runs your kids, runs your school, runs your banks, what?
So there's two separate things there. Let me just say, like, he runs your life. No, he doesn't. No. So why? So, but this whole weird conspiracy that conservatives have that liberals want to run everything in your life. Well, we're not the ones talking about what you should do with your body. We're not the ones that saying what you should do in your bedroom. We're not the ones saying what you should put into your body or not, and what you should smoke and what you shouldn't smoke. You guys are the ones doing that, right? So, and Stelter is not the representative of anyone trying to run your life. So if you said it about a politician, at least it would have a modicum of sense. But now the dark turn. Look at these tropes, and I've seen these 1,000 times, and we've seen them in history. So he's and he said literal demon spawn of the pit of hell. And he said right before that, before my heavenly Father. So I'm a Christian, and what is he, right? And then he talks about he runs your kids, he runs the schools. That's super weird. I don't know what that means, but then he runs the banks. Yeah. Why would Brian Stelter, who's a journalist, run the banks? Who runs the banks according to extreme right-wing ideology?
But
the Jews.
Is Brian Stelter Jewish?
So he said he looks like Michael Wolffe. Now, why are you talking about how he looks like Michael Wolffe, right? And he says, you're the enemy. You're devil-worshipping filth. Right. These are the most common stereotypes there is. Now, I looked it up because I don't know. I don't think about those things, right? And it turns out Brian Stelter is not Jewish. He was raised Methodist. He married someone who's Jewish, but does Alex Jones know that? No. Okay, my guess is he thought those guys, right? And so we're going to get more here in a second, and there's going to be more stereotypes, more of these tropes that you've seen in history. So this is some pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I used to kind of laugh at Alex Jones and his lunacy because I thought, it's partly an act, but the next video really concerned me the most. It made me super uncomfortable because I feel like there's something wrong, okay? Anyway, take a look at the video.
Disingenuous, fake, false, broke back, twisted, a defiler, a betrayer, a backstabber, a devil. You will pay. Yeah, you think I don't see your face, scum? You don't think I don't see you, Stelter? I see you. You understand me? I know what you think of me and my family. I see you right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter? Stelter, you will fall. You will not bring humanity down. God is going to destroy you. Get him off the screen. Oh, God, they're so evil. Just please, God, free us from them. They're drunk on our children's blood, for God's sake. Okay, I'm going to stop right now.
I think the Trump administration paid him off to do this to distract you from that book.
Yeah. Wow.
That sounds personal, though.
That was terrifying.
He said broke back, which was calling him gay.
Yes.
And then he says, I know what you think about my family. Like, it sounds really personal, right?
That's right.
It sounds very passionate. Maybe they had a little romantic rendezvous and he's upset about it because he was like...
Or maybe that's what Alex was expecting.
Yeah, because he said
Brian's married.
There's a very scary and concerning level of paranoia there that it's just, I don't know why people don't question that more, right? Like at first I was like, oh, it's an act. He's just trying to, but that video, that part of his video was what stood out to me most because it went from kind of being entertaining to now this is not funny at all.
No, I don't know if he's having a mental breakdown. I don't know if he's on some sort of like some serious drug. I don't know, right? But there's something. What I do know is there's something deeply wrong with that guy. That is not a normal rant. That's not somebody getting impassioned. That man has lost his mind, and it's the most obvious thing anybody's ever seen. I mean, if you still watch Alex Jones and you think you're getting facts from him, whoa, then there's something really, really wrong with you.
Well, and also,
I mean, how do you look at that and go, yeah, that guy's the guy I'd like to listen to? That's rational.
But what concerns me even more is that we have a severe problem in the country of mental health illnesses that go untreated, undiagnosed, because we don't prioritize it in our healthcare system.
Right.
And so, who knows who's going to come across that kind of content from Alex Jones and believe it because they are not getting the help or the treatment that they need. And we already know that people have carried out acts of violence because of this type of paranoia. This is not funny. It's not cute. It's not entertaining. It worries me. And especially when he is targeting someone like Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter is not known for his strong, aggressive opinions.
Right. That's why I think it's personal. Also religion, playing on the religious people. Our Heavenly Father, God will destroy you. God, you guys, you do the worst PR job for God that you want people to come to. You know what I mean? Like, that is what scares people away. That is what makes people stray. That right there is, you're supposed to be a light. That's what the Bible says. And that people want to seek the light in you and go to Christ because they see the light in you. Who's going to see that and say, you know what, I'm going to church on Sunday because God destroys people who disagree with me.
Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah, so last two things here. Look, one is the words. So look, if you're not familiar with the history of what happened in Germany and what's happened throughout history to the Jews, you might not recognize these things. So that's okay. But, I'm telling you now, these are the most common stereotypes and tropes used against Jewish people throughout history forever. They're the devil, they're defilers, they're betrayers, backstabbers. That's exactly what they said in Germany. And then, okay, so look, you can say maybe he's not going in that direction until he says they drink children's blood. That's blood libel. That's Nazi anti-Semitism 101. 101. So this idiot probably thinks Stelter is Jewish. I don't care. I don't know. I don't care what he thinks. But this language is textbook anti-Semitism. And then you add on top of that, he's got people crazy enough to listen to him. This guy's already said that there's humans running around who are 80% gorilla and 80% pig. And people still listen to him like he knows what he's talking about. So now you're talking about perhaps the most mentally disturbed people in the country who also are heavily armed. And he just told them that God wants you to destroy people like Brian Stelter. This is really serious, dark, dangerous stuff. I don't know what we can do about it. There's freedom of speech. I don't know what to do about it, but I do know it's really, really dangerous. So, I mean, I'm serious. CNN should get him some sort of protection. They should get protection for Michael Wolffe. These people are dangerous, and I don't know what they're going to do next. I mean, so that looks deranged, right? You know what else it looked like? It literally looked like a speech of Hitler. Remember, he would like foam at the mouth, and he'd just like that. So, Alex Jones is not Hitler. He's a tiny, sad, pathetic man. Who's has these insane thoughts in his head. But I don't want people now. Look at this. We did the story yesterday of the neo-Nazi who killed the two parents, and it goes on and on and on. Another white supremacist caught on a train today trying to do terrorism. This stuff's not funny. It's really dangerous.
We got to take a break. Let's do that. And when we come back, an update on the jobs report. It looks like things aren't as rosy as Trump is making it out to be.
Thanks for watching or listening to this free version of the Young Turks podcast. You know that the full show is at tytnetwork.com/join. If you become a member, you get the full show ad-free. We love you for watching or listening. Either way, there's going to be a new free podcast tomorrow. You can keep on doing that. But if you want to get the full show ad-free, tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.